Hey everybody, everything should be going live, so if you can't hear me, let me know. So basically, Lizzie in the chat here can kind of spearhead some of the direction of things, but I'm pretty much just here to, um, answer some kind of questions and things, talk about some things I'm teaching, how I'm teaching that, and we will go from there. So, I said, if you see kind of on the bottom corner of your screen, I've got the URL for my website down there. If you just type that in, um, and it'll take you right there. And then if you want to share the URL right above that with other people, that'll take you right to this chat right here. So we'll go from there. I guess while we're getting started, just a little bit about myself. I'm a current doctoral student at LSU. As Lizzie mentioned, we went to Stetson together. While I was there, my focus was composition, and it was the same when I went on to my master's at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. At the moment, however, I'm focusing more, my major is experimental music and digital media. So it's a lot of uh, computer music, electroacoustic music, things of that nature. I'm teaching a few coding classes, a lot of computer audio focus in that regard. Um, and I'm just kind of experimenting with things a little bit, just trying to figure out exactly what within that realm to focus on for my dissertation. So if you have any ideas, let me know. I'm going to twist that just a little bit. Um, how many? All right, so I got a bunch of questions all at once from Lizzie. So I'm teaching two classes right now. The first one is called digital storytelling, and essentially it's utilizing different kinds of electronic means. So we're starting off with cameras and for still images and videos, audio processing, things like that, just in order to tell different kind of stories. So sometimes they'll be fiction based, sometimes they'll be kind of journalism based, things like that. The other one specifically is it's called Programming for Digital Media, and that's using an online uh, code editor called P5JS, um, which I will type here. P5js.org. Um, and essentially, that's using the JavaScript language for creative coding aspects. So we'll start off, focusing on how do you put shapes on the screen and make them the color you want, and then it'll graduate more towards how do you move them around on the screen, how do you make them interactive with the user. And that kind of culminates into making some basic video games, and then we'll start by coding in the audio for that game as well. And then, kind of the last big sections of the course involve wiring up and creating physical controllers in order to control the code. And then the students get to develop their own project based off of everything we've done so far. So those are the classes I teach. My grade levels, they're fairly mixed. They're all high school students, but they're generally 10th and 11th grade. I have a few seniors and a few freshmen as well, but generally speaking, it's 10th and 11th grade. Um, Looks like you're getting a little bit of buffering right now. My internet connection is not great. I have the poor grad student level of Wi-Fi, um, and it's been giving me troubles trying to plug it in for a more stable connection. So if things just die, let me know. Um, let's see. Yeah, the programs we use specifically, I mentioned the P5JS for the coding course. We use a bunch of different libraries for that. For some audio things, we'll specifically use Audacity, Soundtrap. Um, what else do I have? I have a whole folder of all of these from when we get to that. Um, just a whole bunch of them. Different free versions of um, things like Photoshop and basic editing, other things like that. Nothing too crazy. All right, awesome. Um, all right, so for this program that I'm teaching, I mean, it's a um, normally under less 2020 circumstances, I would go into the high school and teach. It's about 3 days a week. Teach the course and then leave and go back to my classes at LSU and doing things like that. At the moment, um, I'm currently doing some hybrid things, so it's half the students are online and then half are physically in the classroom and socially distanced and super sanitized and all of that, and then they switch back and forth as to who's there what day. So it's a mix of pre-recording all of my lessons and giving them all assignments and going about things that way, and then the traditional I'm going to give a bit of a lecture and uh, you know follow up on it that way. So that's kind of how I go about teaching the course, Julia. And it's kind of like, at least the way I go about doing it is I tend to talk a little more towards the beginning of a concept, and then since these are more project-based courses, I tend to step back farther, and then they have different assignments that they'll do that kind of reinforce the concepts. So by the end, they're able to just create their own projects with minimal input from me. Yeah, programs like BandLab and Soundtrap, once you get into them, they aren't too bad, but it's just learning how to use them. We'll go with that. I've looked a little bit at BandLab, but I can't say I've ever used it. I don't. I've only developed the curriculum for that programming course. So when we use things in the storytelling course, I just have to kind of go along with what they say to use. But actually, for that programming course, I have an online textbook here that I essentially rewrote the majority of over the summer. We're still tweaking parts of it because softwares update and we have to kind of adapt to that. And then myself and another one of my colleagues are working on putting in slides that are built into the web page. That way students can read the chapter, or they can just kind of click through the slides, or if a teacher wants to just have the slides up on the screen while they talk about things. And it's just becoming as round tool as possible. All right, so some of the pros and cons of teaching a digital music course. Well, it's different this semester than it was last year. So I'll say that in this course, we don't really have concerts, so to say, like you would with a band or a high school course. Um, we tend to have more of showcases. In the case of had the end of last year not gone completely awry, there would have all the students would have finished their projects, and we would have shown them off for all of the other students, and then documented them on a website. So that way, whoever wants to can check it out, and it can be shown with other people around whoever the students want to share their work with if they're proud of it. I think that's more of a normal thing, now towards the end of 2020. But back then, that was a little less common in terms of just a music type of course. And it's also because it's digital. It's able to much easier be done. At home, or in some cases telematically, like over Zoom, or in a scenario kind of like this. So I currently have set up for my students. I'll log on, and they can also log on and essentially get open tutoring sessions for whatever kind of concept they need help with. We can go from there. Outside of these courses, I've also taught some just like music composition lessons over Zoom over the past few months, and those have been interesting. It's there's always technical difficulties and not great internet and things like that, but it's very, I won't say weird. It's different not being able to be in the space and get that one-on-one feedback with students like you might be used to. So it takes just getting used to things and finding out what those differences are, because it's different for each person in their particular setup and work process, and being able to work with that. So not to say you don't need to be flexible in a physical traditional scenario, but you need to be extra flexible in a digital scenario, because anything could go poorly at any time. I'll say a specific pro of this semester that I've really liked, outside of the time it takes to do it, is essentially pre-recording all of my lessons and making them available for my virtual students. So pretty much I get all of my materials for the entire week ready over the weekend, and they all get posted Monday morning. But I essentially pre-record the lectures, so that way, while I know the materials beforehand, I'm able to kind of gauge what I feel is effective versus not, and figure out about how much time the whole lesson is going to take, and plan things out, and essentially get a dry run of all the lectures without the students there. And then if I need to tweak something after the fact, I can. So I think that's kind of a cool thing that's kind of come about of doing things in this fashion. Yeah. All right, so in my setup at the school, the way things are set up, it's weird right now. It's an abnormal kind of setup. I do share a computer lab, and I share it with other people, because I'm only going into the high school for the class periods that I teach. Um, they want to utilize the space as much as possible, so other people will use it in other class periods. There's that way. So we're in a computer lab, and the computers, everything for my courses is based online, so they don't have to download any programs to work it. So we don't have to worry about making sure the right things are installed on the right devices, or not having access and permissions to a lot of stuff. But pretty much on the days I go in and we're using that, the students, they can log on, they go to Google Classroom, there's all the announcements and assignments and things like that. And then they can go on to the other sites when we need that, and do their coding work, or watch this video that expands upon what I've done, or sometimes we aren't even in the room. We'll go out and we're taking photos today for the digital storytelling course, or we're going to go do little almost podcast like recordings in another room. So, but we are in a computer lab, and the one I'm in this year has kind of little pods set up. So like desk here, desk here, desk here, and it's pretty much each student to a pod, which works for now because we're basically it's only half the students there one day and the other half is virtual. When we're there normally, it's going to be students a little bit closer, just because there's not enough seats otherwise. And they do that, and they're able to do all the work. But at the computers, they're actually better than normal high school, but still not the best laptops. So if we need to, they can be unplugged from a little docking station, and they can go around and work in a little bit more of a flexible scenario. At the school last year I was at, where we were all face-to-face, it was just hardwired desktops in a computer lab. I still shared it, but they couldn't move around with that flexibility. Yeah, and it's not specifically designated for digital music, this lab, but it has all of the materials there, and then I can, if I need something specific, I'll bring it in for that. Okay. So these courses are there are and there aren't multiple levels to these courses, Lizzie. It's designed as what's called a pathway. So they're all can take the courses within these pathways that they feel they like and they want to take, but it's not like storytelling 1, storytelling 2, things like that. They'll most of the time they'll take that my storytelling course as a starting course, and then they'll go on to something else like the programming course that I teach. Or they'll take like another one called Intro to Computational Thinking, and then next year they'll take that other programming course. That programming one's kind of like a mid-road level, and then things get more and more advanced as they take more classes. Actually, let me see if I have. You can see all my streaming stuff now. Let me move that out of the way. So I've got this going on here, and I'm just going to hide some of my cameras for a second. Boop. And boop. There we go. So just Lizzie mentioned the idea of multiple courses. So there's like this digital storytelling programming for digital media. These are ones I teach through LSU. I mentioned the intro to computational thinking, but there's other ones here, and these all, again, they're all related and kind of in the same area, but when students take these courses and other ones, these aren't all LSU courses. They can get some kind of like different little certifications and diploma seals and things like that. But pretty much anything that's marked as LSU partnership, there's someone like me, essentially a grad student who's going in to these schools in order to teach the courses. That's not that's not the only way it can happen. Every summer, we essentially train other teachers in order to teach them in schools farther away where we can't quite get to them. All right. Let's turn that back on. Bring up the chat again. I think that more schools would benefit, Lizzie. I don't know the exact numbers right now, although I could, let me hide this work I was doing earlier. So I could go find it. The program that I'm a part of that goes into these schools is set up through a grant. So all of these, all the enrollment numbers and things are monitored for the purpose of that grant. And other things, just to see how effective it is, what departments might need more or less funds, things like that. But it's been steadily growing and becoming more popular. Is essentially where I'm going with that. Let me just, boop, nope, not that one. I wanted to put my monitor back on. There we go. But it's becoming more popular. It's becoming more effective as more students take this pathway of classes, and then they find that it's effective. They like it, and then it spreads to more and more schools. This particular one is kind of unique in this area of Louisiana, but it's growing more and more throughout the state. It's kind of just spreading out from the little Baton Rouge area. Yeah, it's fun. The specific courses are on a kind of school-to-school basis based on what they have the ability to do. But I definitely know of a few that have the digital music course. So, James, it's a mix of everything. The specific sound design course, it's geared a little bit more towards instrumental people, just because basically they'll use like keyboard interfaces on the computers and things like that, but it's not geared hardcore to one way or another. When I'm teaching some of the audio units, it's a little more in that sound design realm of, okay, so now we're going to be making these sounds for a specific purpose, whether that purpose is, I need to accentuate what's happening in this story, or I need to code some kind of interactive element for my game that's happening. So it's not like attached to the idea of being a voice thing or an instrument thing. It's a little more, like I said, sound design based, a little more abstract from that. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, Julia. It's nice to get to see people, meet people. Um, and I say if you think anything, might be able to answer a question you might have, feel free to, uh, get in contact. You can either get my info from Lizzie, or I have a contact page on my website that I have on the screen right here. There we go. Um, so yeah, have a great night. Yes, they can, Erica. Those programs are exceedingly expensive, but they don't have to be. There's several that you can get a little on the less expensive side or free. Um, I know a lot of my classes they have access to Audacity for audio editing. That's again a free one. I think for the money that you're spending, which is nothing, it's probably the most powerful one you can get out there. Um, if you want to do things more like a DAW, that's a little bit more powerful. There's free versions of Ableton, and you can get discounts. If you have it on a bunch of computers as an educator. I'm trying to think what else. Another one, Reaper, is relatively inexpensive. Um, let's see. So there's some of those. What all? Let me actually look and see what all do I have installed on my device, because I have a bunch of stuff. Yeah, those are the main ones. Again, GarageBand, if you have Macs, is pretty much free and pre-installed on them. So using things like that, they'll give the students the idea of the concepts, and then if they want to develop more into the the more advanced aspects of it, they can either on their own or through another institute or with some kind of discount go into the more paid softwares. Um, so they say there's a lot of good, cheap, and free options available. You just have to find them. Um, let's see. For my programming course specifically, um, everything we use for that one is open source. So when we're using programs for that, it's all online based that way. So students can just go and access it that way. Actually, while I'm thinking about that, let me get this URL ready to go and share this with y'all. Um, Where did it go? Here we go. This is one I like using in my programming class here. Um, that is a online free to use DAW that also teaches coding. That's how you interact with it, is through coding either JavaScript or Python with free built-in tutorials set up by Georgia Tech. So this is one I enjoy using and recommending that way, just as something in that vein. See, what programs can you use to cater more towards? Yes, Erica. I would agree that the special needs students are on a case by case basis. Trying to think, because I personally haven't had very many of those, so um, that's hard to say because it's such a wide array of things that you could need for a special needs student. For say most of them, if you need to set up different things in terms of like keyboard accessibilities or adjusting things on the screen and how it looks, things like um, logic and stuff like that for DAWs that again are a little more pricey, but they offer more customizability in terms of what where things are, where how things can look and where they go. Um, Things like that could be useful. trying to think what else would be some good ones. Yeah, I don't know as much about that, to be completely honest. I haven't had the opportunity to utilize the more I don't want to say abnormal, the more special needs case to case kind of ways to apply these concepts. Um, if it wasn't as much of a coding language to use, I would recommend something in terms of audio uh, processing, something like Max or Pure Data, because it's completely customizable in terms of it's very graphic oriented. So you're essentially placing an element A and connecting the sound path on your screen from A to B to C, and you're able to process it like that on the screen, and whoever's using it can just arrange it however they need and customize however it looks for whatever they need to do. Um, so yeah, that I hope that's kind of helpful. Like I said, that's not something I've done a ton of. Um, it's, yeah, so there's that. I think more and more things are becoming a little more applicable um, for a wider array of accessibility needs. It's just kind of diving in to find what exactly works for that, um, for the specific case that you need. Um, like I know I have some code editors that I use that can, dictate back to you if you need to, or you can again adjust the color setups and things like that. So, yeah. Okay, another question. Okay. So I typed in a web page a little back in the chat. Um, it's essentially an online textbook, and because I'm technically a comp sci teacher on the books, um, but they're all heavily music related classes. Um, so essentially, what I do is I find the music concepts I want to teach, and I try to frame that in how that would work in um, the technology along with the computer's brain. So in the web editor that I use for typing out code for this course, it's a lot of how the computer's going to process and build these sounds in the computer language, but we're still creating musical elements that the students can work with in that regard. I know a few of the projects we make sound samplers, and we're again sounds that interact with things that are happening on the screen, or um, a little bit of recording and playback. So it's essentially just finding the element that works for both music and comp sci, and finding ways to intertwine them, because in the modern age, the because a lot of music production elements are so digital anyways, I feel that they can be relatively easily tied together. And again, I mentioned before programs like Max and Pure Data. Again, they're technically coding languages, and they behave a lot of the same way you would with things. If you were to type out and code your web plugin that adds a reverb to sound or whatever. But it's got a lot of that same thought process and developing things that way. Okay, so to go about teaching music tech to students, as much hands-on as you can do, I think is the better. Um, in that regard, I mean, right now things are, you know, if you'd have to sanitize the crap out of everything, um, even if you could do that. But Again, as much hands-on as you can do, the better. So in my classes, when we're going in and starting to build some digital synthesizers in our code, I bring in a physical synthesizer, and I'm showing them how this is generating the sound, and we're passing the signal down and around through all the different elements, and it's being affected, and then going right into the code after they've had a chance to play with that synthesizer, and going in and then saying, okay, now here's how this exact idea works, and we're generating this sound or playing back this file, and patching the audio through different elements of our computer. Or if you're trying to work with MIDI, having them be able to play with different MIDI devices in order to play back sounds or send information. Again, I'm a fan of, for the working with the tech and the gear, as much hands-on as you can. This also applies to if you're like trying to teach them how to record or produce things in certain types of classes. Being like, okay, here's Mr. John is going to come in and play the trumpet for us. Here's how we can mic him, placing the mic in different places, using different kinds of microphones, and then having them do it themselves and then compare all of the differences that way. Again, it's just I find in my experience, having them do gets much better results than me just talking at them most of the time. There's a great little series of questions there. We got any more coming up? Oh no, I missed a call from Scam Likely. Um, all right, so this is a challenging one, Erica, because um, whatever an electronic ensemble means, it could be a variety of things. So um, whether it's people playing electroacoustic instruments, or they're all on their laptops working in software things. They can do a large variety of things, and I would recommend checking out things like the Princeton Laptop Orchestra, called Plork, or the Laptop Orchestra of Louisiana, the LOLs. These groups, which I'm actually in the latter one right now, these are essentially laptop ensembles, and they do a lot of different stuff in these contexts. So I know when things are normal, we meet, like a normal ensemble, once or twice a week, and we rehearse things and plan out concerts and performances. But it's not quite like a normal like an instrumental ensemble or a vocal ensemble. There's a lot more troubleshooting involved in trying to tweak things, and a little bit more experimenting. We're often writing bits of software that then used as pieces. Um, I would recommend it if you're just trying to start things up from scratch, getting like a set of laptops to use, and interfaces and microphones and speakers for them to have. So essentially, you can think of each little laptop as a performer on the stage, and then whatever you're doing with them will vary depending on the context of the piece. And then I know this semester, the Laptop Orchestra with Louisiana, we're doing everything telematically. So we're actually setting up individual servers, and I'll be running software, from my computer that's communicating with, Jim's computer 20 miles down the road and Bob's computer over on the other end of town, and Billy in the dorms. So we're all connecting, and I'll be manipulating my music on my end, but I may send control values over to them, and so on and so on. So it's that's just one way we're going about doing things now. Is you can either have everything be local and generated, or then communicate. There's just a ton of stuff you can do with all of that, all the technology. So I would again start off, getting enough gear to do a variety of things, and then kind of figuring out what pieces of music you want to start with. Depending on the context of your members, maybe they've written stuff, or you've seen other things performed that you'd like to start with, and figure out what they and you like, and kind of develop it from there. That's fine. Feel free to ask. Whatever. Do I know if from teachers more about? Trying to think to answer your question about the music tech. Nothing is explicitly jumping to my mind right now. I can't think of anything specifically. Yeah. I think the way I would personally go about it is I would try to figure out what it is I'm trying to incorporate, or what I'm trying to ultimately achieve. Like, let's say I wanted to have the students write some kind of electronic music track using samples. I'd go in and do internet searches to figure out what kinds of softwares or technologies would be good for that, and then go in to see what kind of trainings and tutorials are available on that end. So I will say YouTube is a wonderful source of music technology tutorials and how-tos. I think I'm always surprised at how often I feel people just don't know how to Google stuff, and that's not the best and most academic answer, but ooh, BandLab has references for that. Yeah, it's ooh, and there's a Chrome Music. Lizzie, I have questions about what Incredibox and Groove Pizza is, but I know you're running out of time. Yeah, I personally haven't taken a music technology education course. So I think Lizzie might be a slightly better resource for you, Erica, and figure out what kinds of tools for that regard you could have. Yeah, but I forgot that Chrome Music Lab exists. That's a good one for utilizing technology and web browsers for generating audio in Chrome and working with music that way. That sounds fun. It has math involved. Yeah, so when you get right down to it, most computer music is pretty much just math. So that's fun. Oh, that's cool. I've not heard of either of these last two. Um, Sounds cool. Yeah, it sounds like that last one might be a bit of a sequencer kind of thing. That's fun. Cool. Awesome. I'll definitely in my very limited free time I'll add that to the many things I still have to Google and check out. I will say with the music tech stuff, it can take a lot of time to prep, especially if you're new to it, because when in doubt, technology is gonna go wrong, especially when you're learning. You'll have to, like I said, I'll have to check it out and see what can be used for our projects, but it's fairly flexible. Awesome. Bye, Lizzie. So anyone else got any questions? Well, feel free. I could talk for a bit more. I should probably eat dinner at some point, so. I'll say if Lizzie's still there, I will say that she can just share the playback of this video for her little assignment thing that she was talking about when we were setting this up. So just going to the URL or finding the live playback, she'll be able to just play this on whatever she wants or embed it in a web page or something. So Eric, are you heading out too? Is that what's going on? If so, you have a great night as well. All right. Well, no one's typing in the chat. So I guess I'll probably be on for another few minutes just in case anyone thinks of any last minute questions. Good night. So yeah, thanks for everyone coming in, asking. Hope I could help. This is just kind of an impromptu, casual thing. Um, so yeah, everyone have a great night. I normally sign off my virtual lessons with "I'll see you when I see you," but that's going to be a little harder right now. I will say, anyone watching this after the fact, I know people are starting to sign off. I don't even know if we have anyone still in, but feel free to do all the general YouTube stuff of like and subscribe and blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get enough subscribers so I can change my channel URL to something that's easy to share with my students. So feel free to subscribe. I occasionally post lessons and things about the courses I'm teaching and other music and things of that nature. So do all the stuff. All right. I'm going to start wrapping it up. Again, I'll be on for about another minute or so just in case anyone has a last second question. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions going on, so again, I'm just gonna end the stream now. Feel free to, like I said, like, subscribe, all the blah blah blah, YouTube, yada yada stuff. Lizzie, you can just, like I said, share this video for whatever context you're wanting to do. You can embed it in your web page or whatever. Depends on the thing. Other people can check this out if they want. I'll add all the appropriate tags and blah blah blah. But everyone have a great evening. Stay safe, stay sanitized, and I will see you when I see you.